I think the main theme of the book is that people change because Julie and Bryce changed. Because Bryce, at the end of the story, started liking Julie instead of Julie liking Bryce.
I agree with Dragon because they both come out their feelings, and in the book they kept changing their way of thinking of each other.
I agree both with Draven and Madison. But I'd like to take another look at it. It was more Bryce that changed than I would say Julie.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
But Julie also changed because Julie didn't like Bryce at the end.
Just not as much as Bryce.
Yeah.
Well, then her feelings changed at the end back to liking Bryce.
But not liking him.
I agree with you guys because at the beginning of the book, Bryce didn't really like Julie, but Julie liked Bryce a lot. And so then towards the middle of the book, Bryce started liking Julie, but Julie started not liking Bryce. And at the end of the book, they both kind of liked each other, but each other didn't know that because they were hiding their feelings.
True. Somewhat switch places.
I see where you guys are thinking at, but I also think the thing might be don't judge a book by its cover, because at the beginning of the story, if Bryce hadn't judged Julie, then maybe he would have had more time to get to know her more than just deciding that he didn't like her, he wouldn't know how to do with her. And by the end of the book, he ended up liking her, so if he hadn't judged her in the first place, it would have been a lot easier.
I would agree.
Yeah,
And if they're
I agree, but I see it kind of different because they change their judgment on each other. It's pretty much changing how they feel about each other. And
I agree with Talia because it could be both. Don't judge a book by its color, and people change because they both. Okay. And because I didn't like the book at first flip because it was lame. I thought it was lame, but then I actually got interested in it. It was good.
What do you think about the main theme, Felicity?
I think that the main is what Draven said and Maddie said because, at the beginning, Bryce didn't like her and Bryce didn't like Julie and Julie liked Bryce, and then it flipped.
Yeah, it flipped.
So we're all basically saying that they switched spots.
Yeah.
Bendy, what do you think the conflict is?
I think the conflict is when Julie and Bryce had the big fight over
When Bryce was talking, Garrett were talking bad about their Uncle David.
Yeah.
Good.
I disagree with you because I think the main conflict is that Bryce and Julie were trying to decide if they liked each other or not, and trying to decide if they just wanted to keep ignoring each other or just make
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I see your perspective, Maddie, but I also think in relation to that, it might be the relationship between Bryce and Julie, because at the beginning of the story, Bryce and Julie had two completely different perspectives, and over the period of time of the story, their perspectives kind of changed and their relationship became different.
So you're saying that they basically just flip spots?
So that's what
I
y'all saying.
I agree with you all, but at the same time, I think that the main conflict is Bryce tried to avoid Julie and and he used her to get better grades in spelling, and then he used Shelley, I think that was, to get Julie to stay away from him, but that just made Julie more attracted to Bryce.
I would have to disagree with that.
what Maddie said, like like, because she said that, like, she's talking about, like, what happened, and then you were talking about, like, what just Bryce was doing. You weren't talking about what Julie was doing, too.
And the book's not all focused on how Bryce used it for spelling and Shelley too.
Yeah.
It barely said that. It was like in one chapter.
Yeah, it's about, like, them flipping. That's why it's It's just mainly about, like, them. First, Julie liked him, and then Bryce liked her at the end. So that's what it was mainly about. So.
Caleb, what was your perspective of the story?
I thought it was that Julie and Bryce, they I think the conflict of the story was either at the house or at the school, with like Julie listening to about Uncle David or just the dinner. I think that either one, because of how Julie acted and saying that
Are we all agreeing that especially how they act against each other?
Yeah. I think that. Beth, what's your summarizing of the story? What's your summary of the story? What's your summary of the story?
Pretty much.
You mean about the what you learned about summarizing skills during our story?
If you're summarizing about a whole book, it can't just be like one sentence, because then you're leaving out important parts. Like, if, like, say we had to write a summary about the whole flipped book, if we just say that Bryce didn't like Julie but Julie liked Bryce, that wouldn't like.
It would have to be like
That wouldn't just like summarize the whole book.
You want details, but not too much detail.
Yeah.
You want like one or two good solid paragraphs.
Yeah.
right.
I agree with you, Faith. And I pretty much think the same thing. They have to show all the evidence.
I agree with you.
Yeah. We haven't heard from you in a long time.
Okay. I agree with Maddie and Faith, because if we didn't summarize, it would be really difficult to discuss like we're doing now, and to just do assignments and everything and summarizing just helps understand.
So, what do you guys think about the importance of the perspective in our story?
You get both sides, so you're not, Bryce and da-da.
Yeah, we don't.
And we have both sides.
Like how you should Julie saying how let's start with the middle. How Bryce is so terrible and talking about medical bad. We hear both sides of the story.
Like
Like with the eggs and throwing them away.
Yeah, we
Bryce
If they get Julie's side, we think more of
Bryce was right, and if we didn't have more of Julie's side, we would think on Bryce's side when it was just Julie, we would think Julie. We would just think Bryce is just a big jerk.
Yeah.
I agree with you guys, because, like, if we only got one side of the story, then we wouldn't really know what the other person thought. And we, like, maybe, like say it was Julie talking first, maybe she, like, over-exaggerated or something, and Bryce, like said the whole story, and then if Bryce went first, like, say he left some of the story out, and then, like, since we heard from both sides, we got, like, every little detail.
Bryce really liked to sum up, like in the basketball. He summed up, going through everything. Julie was more laid back and went through everybody.
I agree with you, Brian and Felicity. And I like that we often put both perspectives in there. Otherwise, we wouldn't know the whole story, because there's always two sides to everything. And you need to know both to know what they're doing.
To know what's going on in the story.
I agree.
I agree.
And we haven't heard Bindi in a while. Please, what do you think of this
Perspective?
I think it's when they told both sides of the story to help you get the main points of the story. Because if we only heard like Bryce's side, we don't want to get the main points of the story.
We're all saying that.
I agree with Bindi and everyone else that shared. Because if we didn't have both sides of the story, we would not really understand like, how Julie or Bryce was feeling like one side. And since we got both sides, we got to see it. We got to see the point of the story. What I said in two different sets of eyes, so we see how they think.
I agree with you.
So we're saying that we need two sides of the story to make
It's
one
so
big
important to
story.
get both sides so you know what happens.
Good.
Good way to end. All right. Stop.
Gotta get that.
Okay, and that is meant so you can squeeze it and be quiet.
Oh, that's hard.
And not
I
distract.
don't think I can do that.
Okay, so
Ask everybody.
what were some good things that happened in this discussion?
We all talked and agreed with each other.
Yeah, did you all agree?
Not all the time.
Okay, and when you didn't agree, what happened?
We all need to
Continuing every saw our different perspectives.
Continued, saw your different perspectives and came to a conclusion. Brian, what are some
The
of the
conversation died down. Somebody stepped in and basically started back up.
Yeah, very good. The flow was very good. All of you stepped up and have took good responsibility in keeping that discussion going. Katie, did you have something?
Yeah, like everybody was quiet and we all discussed like the details of the story.
Had some very good evidence.
But I think we talked too much. I did anyway.
You were very quiet. Yes, and that helps so much. Not only for the all the story stuff, but it helps focus us when we really can hear what everyone's saying. Yeah, everyone wasn't just spouting their own ideas. We were all listening to one another and trying to connect. You have to listen in order to connect, right? Caleb, can we all? Yes.
Good things
job.
not even on track.
What can we do for the next one to make it even better?
We could maybe like maybe not bow down as much.
I had one for today.
Okay.
We talked about all four topics.
Yeah, talk about all four topics. The second round can talk in any order of those. You can have your own ideas, or you can jump off of some ideas that you heard here. Right?
How much of the internet is gonna watch this?
Somewhat, some people were able to.
Okay, so really quiet. Yeah. So keep your volume up and your participation.
Oops.
Okay. So very quietly switch places.
Okay, I'm gonna sit here, Colin. Look at this. What is that, please?
All right. So you know what, Alexa, I can have you come over.
Not by me.
Here.
By me.
Wyatt, I'm gonna have you come here. Caitlin, I'm gonna have you over there.
You can sit when I sit there.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'm moving people to the outskirts instead of right here.
Why is there a microphone?
So you do it.
Are we on it right now? Is it recording? Hi.
Okay, so remember, there is no leader. All of you can be responsible for the.
Grace, you'll be the leader? Yep. I think the main theme of our story is not to be judgmental.
I agree with that, but I also saw it in a different way. I thought the main theme was that you need to look a little deeper than just the outside. I agree with both, but I thought one of the other main themes was don't judge a person by material standards. I agree with both of those people.
I agree with all of you because Bryce kind of judged Julie before he got to know her. And then from judging her, he got all the bad influences from her. Like, he threw away her eggs for 2 years.
I agree with that. Don't judge a person by who they are. Because Bryce never got to know Julie. Instead, he judged her before he first met her.
We haven't heard from you or you yet.
Oh, you talked.
Oh, well then we haven't heard from Wyatt yet. What do you think the main theme is?
Oh, I thought it was when Bryce moved in, Julie judged him by his cupboard.
So we all agree it's not just the outside or the material, it's their personality. What does Haley think the main conflict is?
It's don't hide away from reality because Bryce hid from his grandpa, his dad, and Julie, which caused him not to really know his grandpa or who his dad really was. And when he hid from Julie, he didn't get to know her like some other people did, like Darla.
I think that Bryce and Julie didn't think of each other in the same way.
I thought the main conflict was when Julie and Bryce ignored each other and didn't talk to each other.
Oh yeah? I agree with Haley and Alexa because they did ignore each other and they did try to hide their feelings for each other from different people. I agree with Colin.
We haven't heard the conflict from you, Wyatt.
What do you have to think about it?
I thought it was when if they liked each other or not, and that before that, Bryce was talking about Julie and her family.
I agree with Wyatt, and I think that Bryce was judging Julie, but Julie was complimenting Bryce. What do you think, Kaylee?
I think what I thought the main conflict was that Bryce and his family talked bad about Julie's family, and that when Bryce told her about the salmon and poisoning, Julie got so upset with him.
I agree with that.
I agree with Caitlin because if Bryce's family didn't really know Julie's family not that well. So.
Jada, what do you think the importance of the perspective was of the story?
I think it was that so you know what they both done. I agree with that, and I also would like to add to that and say that Bryce told parts of the story, and then Julie put every single detail instead of just putting parts.
I agree with Colin, but I also think that the perspective was the conflicts and the characters' problems because Julie didn't really know her uncle, and then someday with her dad, she met him, and then Bryce told Garrett about it, and then Julie had to deal with all that drama.
What do you think, Wyatt? I haven't heard from you yet.
You have to learn from both sides of the story. I agree with Wyatt because if you didn't have Julie's perspective, then you would all probably think that she was A meanie? Yeah.
I agree with that. Plus, I bet that there were probably details in Bryce, but not too much where we couldn't, where we would just fall apart and not knowing really what happened.
I agree with Colin.
I also agree with Colin.
What do you think, Caitlin?
I think that Bryce told his story and then Julie told her side of the story, and that people shouldn't like judge about the one thing that someone else said before they ever heard the second word about it.
What do you think, Haley, about learning about summarizing through our experience of this story? What did you learn?
I learned that you don't really use a lot of detail because it's a summary. My example is Bryce realized he likes Julie, and you also don't use a lot of dialogue. Like he said this, she said this. It got like really not like a book.
I agree with you, and what I said for my evidence is that you get to know what everyone said.
I agree with that, but I also learned that you have your own opinion because Bryce would have an opinion about Julie, and that at the first part he thought she was this weird stalker person, and then then Julie thought Bryce was the sweet boy that would never hurt anyone, but then that all changed.
But then Bryce was being a meanie head and talked crap about David.
I agree with both of you.
What do you think, Alexa?
Alexa,
Alexa?
I learned like if you don't summarize, then you probably won't understand the story that well.
So if you've discussed all the topics, what can you do now to keep it going?
We could say hi.
To stay focused and build your collective understanding.
I think most of this book was about how people flipped during their relationship with friends and like family. So I would think that if you thought of something about someone, you should get to know them before you are too late and then there.
I agree with Colin, and I think that's why they call the book Flipped.
What were some
Because they
other
both flipped.
What were some other relationships that flipped?
Oh, the mommy of Mr. and Mrs. Losky. Mr. Losky was being mean and talking crap about Julie's family, and then the mom and the mom and the dad got in a fight, and then the grandpa guy, he was yelling at the dad because he was being a meanie head.
I agree with that, and the Loskis were all happy until they started to say mean things about the Bakers, and then the Loskis just fell apart.
I agree with Colin and Jaden, but I also think that that Chet's and Bryce's relationship kind of flipped because Bryce didn't really get to know his grandpa because his grandpa just sat down doing nothing in slippers and everything, and then Bryce started talking to his grandpa and getting along with him more. Thank you.
Oh yeah, and Bryce started like he saw that magazine paper thingy from the newspaper, and he saw that Julie was really hot, and so he tried to kiss her.
What do you think? What other relationships kind of flipped in the book?
What other friendships were there that could have changed?
Well, yeah, Garrett's and Bryce's, because Garrett said that that David means he's messed up or retarded. That it caught on to Julie, and Bryce laughed about it, and then Bryce laughed about it, but he didn't mean it, and Bryce wanted to punch Garrett in the face, which he should have done.
So Bryce's relationship with Garrett flipped.
Yeah, but they didn't really have like a
Because they're
relationship.
Well, they had a friendship going on.
Friendship.
Okay, you guys did a fantastic job today. I'm very proud of you. And you should be proud of yourself. And do you think we came to a better collective understanding of the book? Now that we've done it, we've discussed our thoughts, and we've shared what our thoughts were.
Kind of. Kind of like wonder.
We have just a couple minutes. What I want you to do is flip over your discussion statement. Flip it over, and I want you to put stars next to the skills that you believe you accomplished and used in your discussion.
I did the whole A's and B's as well.
Okay, so I put a star on the individual discussion skills.
I did. Then I'm going on the A.
Okay.